Greetings, vloggers, followers, and potters. Dustin here from Dustin's Dynasty with another edition of the vlog. I'm here glad to join you today. Today we're going to talk about routines, rituals, and how taking notes affects routine. Now, when I say routines, I mean we as autistic people thrive off of routines. We see it much. I've had a lot of experience with routines throughout my years of I'm in my 30s now, and I live with autism every day. So routines are still there. Um, when I was younger, they were very rigid, and now that I'm in my 30s, they're not as rigid. They're more flexible, but have the same elements as they normally as a routine, but they don't have to be as rigid. They don't have to be in the same order all the time. As long as they are completed, that is all that matters. Is that it's done, and what I wanted to get done is done. And I guess in essence is why I realized as a 30-something-year-old that I have to keep notes when I am going through my routines to make sure that I don't miss things, or that I have things that I may need to do in the course of a day, or things I may forget by the next week that, are as my mind is getting older, and, we put things that we remember in the front of our head, and sometimes they get overlooked when thinking of emotions or battlegrounds or control, that, sometimes they just slip away, and it could be hard it could be hard. Also, with being neurodivergent and having to be having some unknown traces of ADHD, that can also make me prone to forget things or go from one thing to another without realizing that I need to finish that. So that is another reason that help keeping a list as far as a routine goes is important. I think sometimes, it's been so much in adulthood growing up that, I think I thrived off of routine so much. I think the way that the education has its flaws for some neurodivergent people. But for me, it was something that I thrived in, yet there were issues. Some people I hear have movement issues. So that was sort of the thing with me. I think as time went on, I was able to stay on task and not disrupt the class and keep well in movement, but it was not until later in elementary years. But I think the routine is very rigid. It was very rigid throughout most of the school career with very little flexibility. Although my sophomore year was full of changes and disruptions to the routine, starting with the 9/11 terrorist attacks here in the States. So, I think that, there was a lot of other factors that took place that year that really set me up for a test, so to speak, as far as routines and, not and being able to be more flexible as time goes on. I cannot also go without acknowledging the numerous people who have helped me work through changes in routine, or having the flexibility and freedom that life can offer while still keeping somewhat of a routine. As transitioning out of high school into a clubhouse model psych rehab as after the educational years, you kind of helped me say that I can keep a routine as long as I do the things I need to do. And I still live that model 18 years later. But, as far as that goes, now as we've always been taught in the early years of my attendance there to write things down. And now I'm realizing more and more as I'm in my 30s that the importance of writing things down just in general in life, and not just trying to store them up in my memory banks, even though I may have information in my memory banks or in my brain. Some of it may not be useful at the time. And the short term, it's not so much the long term memory. You remember those things, those dates, so on and so forth, that stick in your mind. But the short term things, like remembering what your pickup time is for the van on a certain day, kind of fall through the wayside, especially if it's verbalized to you and not in a text or not in a message or an email. So I think having those notations and taking those notations down when you are doing your routine, remembering what you have to do in the course of your day, such as doing this vlog, working on the e-blast, things like that, things of that nature. I think that those are things that really matter to oneself, and realizing that you need those in life, and you need to have a list, and it's okay as an autistic person or okay as a neurodivergent person to make a list of things, because you can't normal neurodivergent neurotypical humans cannot remember everything. So, and there is no shame in having to make a list to do things, to remember things, to know when you're getting picked up, those sort of things. um there's no shame in that. And I think for the longest time I had shame in what I had to do, or knowing what I had to do, or remembering what I had to do in the course of a day or a course of a week, or maybe needing to remember, hey, you need to take your medicine. And I think that was one of the first starts to realizing of getting back into rhythm, was having to set reminders in my phone, having to set smart speaker reminders. All these tools were at my disposal, but yet I just couldn't realize them. And I think it's part of routine. I think the thing that with me is that as I adulted and got into my 30s, became independent, is the fact that my routine wasn't as regimented, saying it's only happening between this time and this time at this hour. It's I can do it as long as it's done, and it has to be done because that's the way we have to do it. I think part of that, with all that, the events in school, in high school, with the 2001, and then having to transition to a program where we were given more freedom but still had to follow a looser regimen, kind of set me up for success in a way. And I think I don't accreditate that as much, or don't give credit to that as much, as it help me transition into becoming a better person. But I think the reality of it is I'm starting to accept the need to write it down, and that it is part of a routine and part of a thing that I do. It's part of the waking up in the morning and making sure your personal needs are met, your technological needs are met, you're getting fed, you're remembering to we talk about interception sometimes. You're remembering. I think that's the thing too. Having a routine and ritual is knowing when you have to use the facilities, when you have to to eat, all of those things. I think it's all of those things is why we thrive. We as autistic people thrive off of routines, because we have issues in other areas or other characteristics in the course of being autistic, that we need that routine. So we know that and people think, well, it's weird that we do these things only at these times or only in these rituals. It's because our brain doesn't sometimes communicate to us that we need to do those things, like use the restroom or eat, or take a shower, all, or get dressed, or it just all of these things. It just and how we do those things, it's why they're so ritualized at times, and they seem so ritualized because it has to be that way. And I've seen people throughout my life who are autistic, neurodivergent, whatever, that if it has to be that way, it has to be that way. And yes, traditionally, I guess someone I with the rituals, I have to be that way. Things have to always be done in a certain way, but there's more flexibility in when that is done. And if there's need for it to be changed, then I can allow it to be changed. And sometimes if it's not that adverse of a change, it's a different between people. And we always know that two autistic people or two neurodivergent people are never the same in life. But I think the way I handle change is a lot smoother. It's just it does affect and it takes change. For instance, my pay, I've had my employment for 12 years now. Almost the end. We're halfway past 12. We're working our way to 13. As a result, our payroll, due to some events, or my employer, our payroll is being outsourced. So I'm getting paid on a different day of the week, and that is a change. Also, I'm not getting paper pay stubs anymore. So all these things change. And I think the deeper the change to the situation of the way you did things, as you went into your office, as I go into my office at work and I look for my pay stub, but it's not there. Now I have to do something else to get that. I think that's a big it's a change. And if it's something like where my payroll is direct deposited and it's and if I'm expecting it there when it usually is, but it's not, and then the way the cycles go, having to adapt to a new cycle, just like changing the clocks back. All those things take time to get into things. I slept pretty heavily the last 3, 4 days. We just switched back to Eastern Standard Time here where I live, after 6 months of being in Eastern Daylight Time. And I kind of like it. I kind of don't like it. I like it. I like Eastern Standard Time to the degree that I can get out early because I am an early person. I like to wake up early, get things done, and I like to go out while it's nice and cool outside if the weather permits. The things I don't like about it, of course, is the darkness early, like about 5 o'clock, like it is now. And I do like this sunrise that my mother took from our family's home, and then it would come up at 6:30 in the morning, I believe, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. I like that part of it, and I know that eventually the time will go back. Time will get shorter and shorter as time goes on, but and I kind of wonder, I get the understanding, if Congress has its way and the U.S. Senate has its way and can pass the time thing to go away for all of the whole country, it's a big change for a lot of people. I mean, Arizona and Hawaii don't do it, so I guess, just they've done it and they've accepted it all these years. I remember going to Indiana where they did it. Some counties did and some counties didn't, and then they did, and then they reverted it back to right after I was there, and everybody switched clocks. But I kind of like it, but I understand we want longer days, and I appreciate longer days, but I think maybe I will appreciate it's another change, and changes are hard, but changes are a whole other concept to a routine. And what it links to the change video is because changes in routine, because we like things certain ways and for them to be done in a certain manner, it can be hard to accept a change to a routine. So I hope that made sense in a way, because it's so much more than just, we have to do things this way and it has to be just this way. And many people, people find that standoffish or, not right about ourselves as autistic people, that, we kind of find a way, we kind of find it rough or hard on ourselves. And we sometimes react, but while we're reacting is because it's something we're used to, and then it constantly changes, or it's a change. Take, for example, the parking lot issue that I've had a few weeks ago. We had to go there again yesterday, and there was no parking, and I got frustrated for just a moment and had a small burst of anger towards the person, towards my mother who was driving me, but then she found a place to park. It was not the preferred place to park, but once I got into where I needed to go to get what I needed, and I explained to the person doing the registration that if it was okay for the park there, because, and it was the public parking lot, because there was no else to park, and she let me know that the people bringing my food are aware of the situation. So I think sometimes you have to realize that you have to break things down, and you have to just make sure that people think and know about it and feel comfortable about it. And once I know that, now I feel comfortable realizing that it's okay, that we're going to go through this every month or whenever I have to go there. and that parking is going to be, we have to accept the changes. It's a big change for everyone, not just neurodivergent people, not just autistic people, but everybody, all neurotypicals too, everybody as a whole. It was a big change for my community to know that they couldn't park in this situation, and and it did cause a lot of drama and a lot of talk in the town. But now I think people are slowly, I'm not saying 100%, but they're slowly getting used to it. So just knowing that we are creatures of habits as far as change goes, and why we do things is because some people are a creature of habits. Autistics are very regimented in their and they thrive off of being a creature of habits. And when that is disrupted, our way of reacting, because it is a change, can be very difficult sometimes to accept by others. Because depending on how we are taught to react to things, our emotions, our the way we is it aggression? Because at one time I could have been very aggressive. If you looked at that situation maybe 20 or 15 years ago, I would have been lashing out at my mother. But it has taken lots of therapy, lots of understanding, lots of disbelief and maturity to get to the point where I can just be more verbal. And now it's to the point where I can be only verbal with her or with my father, but not even so much with my father as it is with my mother, because I co-regulate with her. Then that's how things work. That's how things roll. And I think that's the thing I have to understand, is that things are slowly improving, but having a routine and having a way of doing things can help ease the brain do much other work. And I think part of understanding of having a routine, writing things down, all of that makes things work better. And I think we know that autistic people are very ritualized and very regimented, but we don't understand the why or the how. We see the typical things of rituals, like lining up cars or opening and shutting doors. Those were things I did in my childhood. But I think, people don't understand the why and how of things, or why we react to things. And if they don't know that we are out and autistic, how do we react to things? How do we, why are we reacting in the way we do? And it takes a lot to have self-advocacy skills too. And it helps with the routine going better, because you have to live your life as your best. Well, with that being said, I think I've conversed enough on routine and change and how that all, plays a pivotal part in the day, and accepting that, because that's the way we are. And accepting, I think for me personally, accepting the way that I am, and that this is the way that I am made, and these are the diagnoses and the neurons and the neuroscience in my brain, then I'm okay with that. And what I do in life is normal and should not be suppressed, kept down otherwise. So again, I want to thank you for listening. I know I went a little on about that, but I thought I did an original first take of this, and it was not the greatest. And I think now that I got more of what I wanted to say about things, and how routines, the why of routine, the why of ritualization, all of those things matter and to an autistic person. And I think I had to include more on change, because when change happens, especially in this day and age, and we see individuals that we may or may not know, but are maybe are autistic, reacting in a way that we do not prefer or that may seem adverse. It's understanding the scale of how autistic people thrive off of routines and how having a routine is sometimes needed and sometimes makes it a good part of their day. So with that being said, be sure to like this video or subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Be sure to like me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest at Dustin's Dynasty. Follow me on the web at www.dustinsdynastyusa.com, and be sure to follow me on TikTok at Dustin's Dynasty ASD. With that being said, I want to thank you for listening, and be sure to have a good week, everybody. Take care and be safe out there. We'll talk again next week.